You gonna not subscribe because of Russia issues? More like skill issues. Anyway, YouTube. Today, I am reacting to a lesser watched canned juice video a month ago. It only has 70K views, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, is a lot, but it's one of his lesser ones. Make an okay buddy emo? Okay, I can do that. No way, Corv? Yes way. Yeah, canned juice, I've reacted to him before a while ago, but I have reacted to him before. So, like, but yeah, hello, everybody, Grum, YouTube, everybody. We are reacting to the big three Ubers. I feel like, based off of the thumbnail, I'm being misled because based off the thumbnail, it would be Balrog, Dasli, and Fonoa, who are the big three, which I disagree with largely. But we'll see. I guess I'll talk about it. So, hello, Akiro, and let's get started.
On June 16th, 2024, the YouTube channel for Battle Cats Taiwan uploaded
All credit to this guy, by the way. Canjuice is great. He's a cool guy.
an event video related to the 9th anniversary of their version of the game, which was called the Nyanko Awards. This event had players vote on their favorite
Oh, is the big three like its own thing?
Such as Best Meat Shield, Best Attacker, and more.
Once again, farming. Yes, I am farming content. Shut up.
Nominees for these categories made a lot of sense from a player's standpoint, demonstrating Ponos' knowledge of the meta of the game. The final category, roughly translated to Dream Cat Award, was a bit different from the others. Instead of having 5 units, it only had 3, and this was the only category with Ubers. The Ubers listed were Dasli the Bane, Balrog Cat, and Child of Destiny Fono.
I forgot this was a thing.
Ubers were commonly referred.
Yeah, it probably is favorite Pokemon votes, except these are probably like the best Uber votes. Like if Pokemon had a best Pokemon thing, like what it would be. I don't even know the best Pokemon. Like there's just so many different Pokemon that there really wouldn't be a best three. I don't think. I mean, I guess Arceus, uh, Mewtwo, like a couple of others. I guess I don't know, but like they're still all arguable. There's no like. I guess Battle Cats is the same way. Whatever.
Referred to as the big 3 Ubers of the Battle Cats. Ubers which were widely considered the 3 best Ubers in the game.
I don't know about widely considered, especially now that, well, this is only a month old. But when did the rewards thing happen? 2024? Did it say January 2024? I think whatever. So it's old, so it's outdated. The big three is outdated.
Above any other Uber that they could be compared to. What made these 3 Ubers so different from the rest?
The Cine Series Battle Cats.
Trios of Ubers in the past, like Mitama, Gao, and Jizo. So what makes the new big 3 in particular such a standout group of Ubers? In order to
all 3 of them, none of the 3 are similar to each other. Like they all 3 have different roles. He said yeah. So far, we haven't gotten into any of the like opinionated stuff. I don't know if he talks about opinions, but it's been a while since I watched this video.
Look at every member of
I don't think I fully watched it though.
They rose to power.
Like whenever I did watch it.
One by one. Let's start with Dasli, who is arguably the first member of the big 3. In update 9.5, Ponos added Dasli the Bane to the Epic Fest banner.
Damn, that was 9.5? I was there for that.
Scourge. The 2 Daslis were pretty similar, both having guaranteed surge attacks, had more range than Paris Cat, and had great stats overall. If we look at her
of all ways to compare their range, Paris Cat? I mean, I guess people need a good comparison, right? So, like, I guess that's true. Yeah, I guess that's fair. That's fair.
30 stats, there's a lot of things that pop out as remarkable. The first is her damage, which is 17,000 per hit for a DPS of around 3,000. This doesn't seem too great on paper, but when taking account for her level 3 surge ability, the DPS goes up to a massive 12,000 at just level 30. The average generalist backliner at level 30 has around 6 to 7,000 DPS. So Dasli's damage
7k is average for a backliner? That's not right.
To know that Dasli isn't just a
I'd say 5 to 6k, but how much DPS does Megadora have at level 30? Because I do not think that 7K is average, and I don't think Megadora has 7,000. I mean, I guess it could be like 6.5. It's 6.2. So like I don't think 7K should be considered. I don't think 7K DPS should be considered average. I think just base 6K should have been average. I think, but you know, I don't know the stats on it, so
Regular backliner, as she has LD on her attack reaching from 275 to 675 range, with her level 3 surge
another thing to consider is that Megador is a backliner that doesn't have LD.
spawning from 400 to 700 range itself. LD Ubers that have additional pierce and range typically have lower damage outputs, like
Right.
Aphrodite having
Hello, Enlebo.
3.4k DPS at level 30 due to being an LD unit. Dasli simply doesn't
Well, not simply because of the LD, because of the like 600 range, but yeah.
care about this and chooses to have the benefits of extremely high DPS with the range and pierce advantage from LD and Surge. It's almost like Aphrodite's massive damage against aliens, but Dasli does massive damage to everything. Her survivability was incredibly
Yeah,
good
but Dasli also has less standing range. Uh, keep that in mind.
as well. 78,000 health and 5 knockbacks while standing at 400 range. The high health and knockback count allows Dasli to live for longer than most other Ubers in the game, and
Now,
as
that's
a
true.
result, her impact on the field is just dramatically higher than almost any other Uber. Her other base
Yup.
stats are pretty decent as well, having a normal Uber cooldown, 10 speed, 4,800 cost.
Could you not
and
have
a
kept the
fairly
stats
quick
up for this
attack
part?
cycle. If we take a closer look at her abilities, we can just see she gets even better. Immunities to Weaken, Wave, Surge, Warp, and Curse. And
Why? I've I feel like you could have just whatever.
enemies can't stop
I'm not gonna
enemies like
criticize that
these for the
much.
Weaken, and the Wave, Surge, and Warp
I want to
immunities are
criticize
very
because that's
useful
kind of what I'm
against
known
those
for.
respective enemies, and allows her to bypass their main threat. Dasli
And because what else am I supposed to do? Just watch quietly? No, I don't want to watch quietly. I'm a yapper.
was also one of the only few units in the game at the time to be immune to Surge, which was a pretty big luxury
Because
for
that was
enemies
because
like
Surge
her.
was a new thing in general
Her
at the
last
time.
immunity was Curse Immune, making sure her own crowd control ability couldn't be stopped. What was this ability?
Isn't normal Casly
Well,
also curse immune?
Dasli was the first cat in the game to be given the ability Curse, which stopped enemies from doing crowd control abilities as well as Toxic. This ability had a 4.5
I sometimes forget that Dasli came out before Papa Luga. That's kind of crazy.
second duration, and combined with her Surge reapplying the debuff, if Dasli attacked an enemy, they would basically lose their crowd control ability as long as Dasli kept attacking them.
Yeah,
This is
I'm
an
made for yapping
extremely
and hot
powerful
takes.
ability,
100%.
able to ruin lots of annoying crowd control enemies.
What?
Henry
What was
can't
that?
freeze anymore, Mr. Mole can't knock back anymore, and Crockley can't slow. Warp enemies like Mesocosmo Cyclone and
This is a
Smurf
perfect
don't
stage for
teleport
this, by
units
the way.
away, and toxic enemies like Gobble and Papu end
Oh
up dealing
wait,
next to
this
no
is
damage
BCU.
at all.
Yeah. Of
While
course it's a perfect
powerful
stage.
ability on its
It was
own,
made
it just
specifically
so happens to
for
be slapped on a
Dasli,
unit with crazy DPS,
who just fucking died, by the
reach,
way.
survivability, and immunities. This
Best
is
Uber in the game,
daughter
by the
of
way.
Chaos, Dasli. After explaining all of her pros, it's not hard to see why she's one of the strongest
Doesn't even have immune to toxic. Come on now.
Ubers in the game. Upon her initial debut in 9.5, the BCEN community quickly praised her
Revenge.
strengths, with the BCEN tier list placing
Yo. Showing a tier list with all the collab Ubers and everything, it makes me really consider, should I do another Uber tier list and this time add, and well, not another one, take the one I already did and add the collab Ubers? Is that something I should do? Add collab and seasonal? Is that something I should do? YouTube, 100 likes. That'll be like the like goal. 100 likes on this YouTube video and I'll do it. I'm asking for likes
her
for
right in
once.
the
Crazy,
SS
right?
tier, alongside other strong meta units at the time like Jizo, Gao,
No, I won't do a just collab Uber because I want people to know where they stand compared to all the other Ubers. Because that would be a better way of ranking them. Since collab Ubers typically have a lower bar.
Mitama, and her similar light counterpart. Many people thought she was near the top, but almost no one thought she was at the very top spot like most people do nowadays. With just a bit of time, however, Dasli would creep up to be the inarguable best Uber in the entire game, being above all of the old big three Ubers. The
Not
longer the
even
game went
barrier
on
breaker,
for,
come
the
on.
bigger Dasli's power gap was compared to those Ubers, and you'd
I'm
see
kidding.
some like Jizo or Gao fall off dramatically as the meta changed.
Uh, what is this tier list? Wait, is this tier list actually considering specialist value? That's crazy. Imagine. Imagine an actually good tier list. Ah, never mind. Fucking, what the hell is Zeus doing up here? Yeah, never mind. L tier list. D'Artagnan's an S tier, so you know what?
Well,
I
Dasli
give him props
remained
for that.
number one.
Whoever made this tier
While
list. I don't know if it
Dasli
was
was
Ken Juice or
underrated
not.
a bit during her release, it is important to know that the new content generally favored her set of abilities. The growing Uncanny Legends added more and more stages which featured relic enemies, and Dasli could shut down their curse abilities,
I
making
wonder
them
if that's why so many people think of Dasli as the best Uber because she came out at the perfect time for like UL and stuff, and since she works super well against UL, maybe that's why so many people think she's the best Uber, just because UL is that kind of thing where she works well, because she can just curse other cursors. Maybe,
much
maybe.
easier to take down. When the Aku trait came out later, part of their main gimmick was the Death Surge and Surge Spam in general, which Dasli had an immunity to. But another reason why she was
Immunity to
underrated
Surge is so
was that
crazy.
there's simply more to Dasli than a surface level view of her stats. In a way, as funny as it sounds, Dasli might even be underrated today. Not underrated by how much usage
I I think no. She's underrated is the wrong word. The right word is misunderstood, maybe? I don't know. It's kind of hard to think about, but there's a lot of people that just look at her as damage, right? Like there's just a lot of people that see her 12k damage at or DPS at level 30 and they're like, "Okay, she's just an overpowered as fuck damager." When in reality, it's the combination of everything that makes her as good of a unit. She has amazing immunities. She has amazing standing range. She has amazing damage. She has amazing HP, amazing survivability with her knockbacks. She's not super expensive. Her recharge time is fine. And she also has a really good crowd controlling just like role because of the surge. And then she also has. Did I mention the curse already? The curse gives her usage that's like technically specialist, but not against the targeted trait. Like she provides specialist value against everything because of the 100% uptime curse, which can be really valuable against a small amount of enemies, which basically gives her specialist value, basically like in a specific way. And so it's the combination of all of that that I think people are overlooking. So like that's I think something that people still don't really look at. People still mostly look at her damage and maybe her HP. Even though it's the combination of everything that makes her as good as she is. You know what I mean? Yeah, and a lot of people do just slap her into a lot. I like using Dasli for her curse. That's the only way I'll really bring Dasli in a lineup on my main account is if curse benefits me in a stage, since she is by far the best cursor in the game. Knockback against traitless, bro, that would suck. Well, it'd still be good.
she
I bet,
has,
but
but underrated in the fact that while most people know why Dasli is strong, they don't know the full extent of what makes her so much better than almost everything else in the game. So let's take a deep dive into Dasli and analyze why she's special.
another reason why she's so much better. I've mentioned this in the Casly versus Dasli video, but one of the reasons why normal Casly is not talked about as much, and meanwhile Dasli is talked about so much, even though they lack a lot of differences, like they're very similar. One, their HP, and two, their standing range. The difference between 375 and 400 isn't that big of a difference, but since their LD stays the same, that just makes Dazzly's survivability that much better. And then also she can outrange anything between 375 and 400, unlike normal Casley. But 375 range is still really good.
Dasli's level 3 Surge is an ability that creates a surge, which is a lasting hitbox that constantly deals damage to enemies every
True,
20
Kratos knockback
frames.
would be good.
At level 3, this surge lasts a total of 60 frames, or 2 full
Yeah,
seconds
so she can
in a
work as a really good crowd
FPS game.
controller.
If you add the time between when Dasli attacks and when the surge spawns, that's another 15 frames, for a total of 75. In this 2.5 second window,
Casley
if
missed! Oh
Dasli
my god,
leads
worst
her
Uber!
attack on an enemy, any enemy that enters her surge range will get hit and damaged. With an attack cycle of 174 frames, this is about a 43% damage window where Dasli is constantly dealing damage. On paper, this might not seem too interesting, but a
Wow,
lot
the
of
Sorels
enemies
are
are greatly
doing a
affected by
lot of
this.
help.
High-speed
That
enemies like
camel's really
Balrog or
strong, and
Gabriel
Dasli
can't
was
get
just able
past the
to hit
lasting
it thanks to
hitbox.
the stepping stone. Sorry, I keep talking over him. What is he talking about? Oh, constant damage.
High-speed enemies like Brawlo or Gabriel can't get past the lasting
Wow,
hitbox
Surge
and are
causes
caught out
Surge?
with
Crazy.
perfect accuracy.
It
Likewise,
is reaction content that it is, and it is also canned juice.
high knockback
You were right.
enemies like Gory Black or the aforementioned peons can be
Wait,
knocked
when
out
did he say that? I need to back
with
up
a
again.
lasting hitbox. This high-speed enemies like Brawlo or Gabriel can't get past the
I'm
lasting
too far past
hitbox
it.
and are caught out with perfect accuracy. Likewise, high knockback enemies like Gory Black or the aforementioned peons can be knocked out and juggled by Dasli's lasting hitbox,
When he said
making
about
it
Surge,
extremely
okay.
hard for them to reach the front line and deal damage. This
What's
giant
this?
death
What's this on? Big Three Ubers and the Battle Cats. This is on YouTube.
wall that Dasli creates is unlike any other Uber in the game, because no other Uber has as high of a surge level combined with as high of a DPS that Dasli does.
Ah, I mean, Dazzly's base damage really isn't that high. So like it's really not so much that there's no other Uber with as high of a surge level. It's more so there's no other Uber with as much base damage as Dazzly. Except I actually think there's a better example of the death wall. Which I think there's a better example of a death wall. And I think it's Ava Angel. Uh which angel am I thinking of? Which one has Surge? The anti-floating one was Surge. Which one is that? I'm trying to think. Ramiel? Yeah, Ramiel. Ramiel, this is the enemy. Can I have the Uber, please? What? Okay, you know what? Here. Oh wait, there it is. Ramiel has a level 3 Surge that has even more base damage. Because here's the thing, right? Uh, it's not Ava 06 because it's an actual angel, not an Evangelion unit. But it's like much lower base DPS, right? So like DPS is worse than Dazzly's 100%. Unless, except for floating it, obviously. But this base damage, let's see. What is Dazzly's base damage at level 30? Casley. So I'm just teaching you guys something. Yeah. So Ramiel has double the base damage and the same level of surge attack, plus massive damage against floating. So specifically against floating, this is 100% the strongest death surge or death wall you will ever find on a cat unit. So, like I'm only talking about the death wall thing. Dazzly is not the best death wall. It is the most consistent death wall. You know what I mean? Not nearly the best death wall, but the most consistent one. You know what I mean? Like her base damage actually isn't all that high. Against like 200% Sorels, all you're doing is juggling them, which I mean works, but it's not going to kill them, you know? So it's not really a death wall, it's a juggling wall at that point. You know what I mean? Like Ramiel just has a really strong surge, so he is the definition of death wall. Bikini Luga does not have a very strong base hit.
This lasting hitbox makes Dasli one of the most consistent damagers in the game, and also has
Consistency is
yet
key.
another bonus that comes with it.
That's why Dasli's so good, because she's consistent. I don't like inconsistent Ubers, which is why I don't like Balrog and Lassos, which Balrog we'll talk about.
Dasli,
Doron still doesn't have that much damage per his hit, I don't think. Because like how much I don't think he does that. I think he probably does Dasli level per damage or per hit. But it's a much isn't it wait, isn't it the same level? Isn't it the same level surge? Okay, no, it does have he does have slightly higher damage per hit. With a level yeah, it's a level 3 surge. So it's the same level but slightly higher damage. So Doron does also have a
almost
death
never
wall.
misses. Most units tend to miss in this game if an enemy is slightly
Almost never
outside
misses. I've already seen her miss once in this
their
video.
range or is knocked back while their attack goes off. Because
So it's not
Dasli
something
both
to
has
count out.
piercing range and a lasting hitbox, even enemies that get knocked back while Dasli attacks can still be hit by the surge as long as Dasli manages to hit something.
And do remember that if she's juggling, yeah, it is juggling, but it's also reducing a lot of her damage. If she only hits something once, I know it says almost never misses. I'm just saying it does happen. Don't count it out. There's also a blind spot though, so she can miss just straight up because something gets too close. And I will also mention her base damage isn't actually all that great. So if she only clips something once, yeah, it's still damage, but it's not nearly as much. Like that's the original 3K DPS that people would say is probably dog shit nowadays. You know what I mean? So just saying.
If an Uber like Gao hits a peon instead of a boss, he just hits a peon. But if Dasli hits a peon,
You say as he literally just hit the fucking gory, which is technically a peon. Is the gory considered a peon here? Whatever. He also has it's like the surge. I think something overlooked on surge is that it's effectively a multi-hit, right? Like there's not really a difference between surge and a multi-hit. So if you're going to count out multi-hit for the fact that it can knock something back with the first hit and then lose damage on the second hit, then that's something you shouldn't count out on surge as well. So
the surge she creates is still going to hit.
okay, Kava. Well, if we compare everything at level 50, then it still goes because in comparison to the other things that have base damage, like, you know what I mean, right? Like, like here's the thing, right? If you look at Dasli at level 50, you're going to have to look at everybody else at level 50. And so then her base damage is still the same in comparison to the other Ubers in the game. So, especially since other Ubers like Sin, like, yeah, her damage is multiplied, but if you don't multiply her damage, her level ups are actually not worth it other than her HP. Because like if her surge didn't exist, her damage would barely go up from levels, unlike people that just straight up have high base damage like Balrog, you know, because since levels are, you know, percentage based off of their level 1 stats, uh yeah, so no, I'm saying I'm no, Kava, you're misunderstanding me. If you're not counting the surge. So if you're still talking about the one hit, right? The 3k DPS on Dasli. If you're talking about specifically that, then the level ups will go off of that rather than after having 12k DPS. So per level, her base damage gains less than somebody with higher base damage and no surge. You know what I mean? She's balanced around having that surge, so her base damage isn't very good. So her base stat is not very good. Her surge is multiplicative, therefore that's why the damage is good. Are you getting what I'm putting down?
The boss and do massive damage. So on top of having broken base stats, Dasli's Surge gives her a unique Death Wall ability, and she is almost incapable of missing enemies. Dasli is also full back.
She can still miss though. Because remember, she does have a blind spot. I'm sure he talks about this soon. But missing on an LD unit isn't very common whenever it comes to reaching things in the back or whatever. But you can still miss things close, especially with that surge not hitting anything close up, because it'll oftentimes be farther than her blind spot. So you still have to consider that because she does get rushed down. Level 1
Vega,
Pika
on the
probably
other
has like
hand,
10
can run.
DPS.
This means she doesn't walk forward until her attack animation is finished.
I know it's still pretty rare. I'm just saying that LD units, unlike just base area attack, like Gao and Dasli will miss in two different ways. You know what I mean? Like Dasli will still miss things up close to her. Meanwhile, Gao will probably miss things farther from him. So they both still have the chance to miss, but it's a different way to miss.
And also means that if her attack is interrupt, she instantly gets it back. This not only causes Dasli to deal even more
Also,
damage.
Dasli's not good for Brawlos. Please, for the love of God, do not use Dasli against late game Brawlos. She will just let them get more hits in, and that is the last thing you want from a Brawlo. You want to one-shot them.
But it also makes sure that she never walks forwards to her death without an attack to protect herself.
Especially if they're strong. The only reason why Dasli didn't die here from the Brawlos is because they have 4 meat shields. They have 4 meat shields. That is the only reason why Dasli did not die from this.
But Dasli just so happens to have it, negating another common weakness of backliner units. Dasli's ability to curse is also
Wait, did this cut out whenever she was going to miss? This looks like she absolutely misses here. This can you YouTube, for the love of God, stop lagging. This looks like she's about to miss. Dude, I'm moving it back 1 frame at a time and YouTube has to have the loading thing on every single time. Like, what the hell? Why are you being so slow? I think she actually misses here.
Dasli's ability to curse is also way better than any other unit's ability to curse in the game, which leads it to being
Triple Casly team is a bad idea. Wanna know why? Because they don't offer protection for their blind spots.
Very underrated part of her kit. When initially compared to Casly the Scourge, most people at the time preferred Casly's knockback ability because it juggled strong enemies and allowed the player to regain valuable spaces. But as time went on, Dasli's Curse may have proven itself to be the stronger ability. Enemy abilities are one of the hardest things in
I don't know about stronger, at least not generally. Most of the time, like in some stages, yes, it will be really nice, but Henry and Crockley are very uncommon enemies. I've seen them maybe like 5 times, not counting crown versions of the same stage. So like generally speaking, the knockback I think is better because knockback LD can just destroy a lot of stages, especially if you even just get 2 in a row, which it's a coin flip. So, but with the curse on some stages, a small amount of stages, her curse will actually be way more useful. So,
deal with, and by disabling most of them, Dasli has a unique role as a supporter on top of her already top tier damager role.
which is what I say a lot about Dark Fono is that the best thing for a generalist Uber is to have support value and damage value.
And speaking of roles, Dasli is a surprisingly versatile unit. You can use her as generalist DPS, but you can also use her to snipe enemy backliners like an LD unit.
Like an LD unit, she is one.
You can use her on stages with high amounts of chip damage and still get great results. Dasli herself can also occupy a chip damage role.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, using Dasli for Brawlo is no better than using Courier for Brawlo. Changed my mind.
Surge alone deals 51,000 damage at just level 30, doing big chunks of enemy health no matter what she's targeting. And even if she dies after just a few hits, she would have dealt massive damage already. The 10 speed
Did she?
is
She got like 2 hits in.
enough to keep her safe while also allowing her to pass through LD enemy blind spots to make it to the front line. She can be a support with her curse ability.
Slime is one of the best Brawlo counters. I will give you that.
And protect your other units with her Surge Wall of Death. In a way,
Hand juice when Dasli and LD unit.
Dasli is everything. And this perfectly sums up why Dasli was so far ahead of every other Uber in the game at the time. Dasli is uncounterable. There simply aren't.
Boar. Hey, look, I counted her. Boar. Need I say more? Bun Bun. Nowadays, Xeno Beast, Explosion, Brawlo.
Or any weaknesses to Dasli
I'm pretty sure literally any Colossal boss as well, because I think most of them have more than 400 range.
because she has so many different properties that work in her favor to keep her strong. No matter what enemies or what stage, Dasli is always going to put in work and either help to or just completely destroy a stage. The best Uber in the game before Dasli, Mitama, was already a pretty broken Uber.
She lacked damage. That's the thing about Mitama, is that like with Mitama and who whenever Mitama was the best Uber, who is the best damaging Uber? Balrog still? Or was it, I don't know, but like Mitama has support, Balrog has damage. The reason why Dasli and Dark Fono are arguably the best is because they combine the two. Well, they combine two very good abilities of damage and support and turned it into one unit. So that is why I firmly believe that support and damage mix is the best thing you want out of a generalist Uber. Yeah, Gao. That's fair. That is fair.
Her near-permanent crowd control was a giant crutch that helped you progress much further in the game by helping your other units.
That was always kind of crazy to me. Gao was always said to be better than a Mataratsu, even with talents, I'm pretty sure. Which is kind of crazy because, I mean, from what I remember, Mataratsu's DPS is like much greater against anything with a trait. So like, and her survivability is comparable thanks to survival. Yeah, I don't know. I like Gao a lot, but I don't know how he would be. Maybe his immunity to wave. I don't. Oh, his first form. That's what it is. People considered his first form as well. That's what it was.
But that's the thing. With Mitama, you at least needed investment and levels in other units to finish the job. But Dasli
Yeah, because her damage is kind of meh.
army. She doesn't need anything besides some meat shields to
Grom, don't you
destroy
fucking
many
dare.
of the stages in the game. No matter what other units you had or what stage you were playing, there was always a right answer. Just
True, bed.
use Dasli. Dasli's power became quite the buzz around the Battle Cats community, not just
They used
and
pizza
but in
on
other
Cappy?
regions too, like JP,
Interesting.
KR, and Taiwan. She became one of, if not the most well-known Uber in the game.
Hey, look, Taiwan. Taiwan is mentioned.
Around the time Dasli started to become the absolute top meta, the EN community in particular started to
Hey, look, she missed the
popularize
Shadow
an
Boxer
exploit
K.
known as tracking, which allowed you to see and manipulate what you got from the gacha. You may be able to attribute
Yeah,
the
whoever
popularity
tracks
of
is
tracking to the
cringe.
rise
Just
of
want to say that.
Dasli, because this was the first ever time where a unit was genuinely single-handedly able to carry you throughout most of the game, not even needing most of the common
D'Artagnan carried me through. Wait, D'Artagnan, Gao, Kazuchiza, they all carried you through a majority of the game. I mean, the only exception being UL, I guess. But at the same time, I used Mighty Lord Gao a shit ton in UL. So, like, it wasn't the first time.
non-Uber units. Even today, tracking is fairly common, and Dasli is usually the gold standard unit that everyone wants to go for. All of her broken attributes, combined with the fact that she didn't need any true form or talents to be good, made her perfect for speedrunning.
She lacks Zombie Killer, though. Wait, zombies. Zombies and metals actually kind of counter her. Like, Super Metal Hippo, she does well against, but put Dasli against the Metal Seal? Put Dasli against a zombie-filled stage? Like, there are ways to counter her.
Stages of the game couldn't hold
They,
Dasli
they
back,
just don't work that well, because most of the time you have an overpowered Dasli.
Easier. But as we know from the anniversary post we saw earlier, Fono knows what the meta is, and after witnessing what Dasli did, they may have made some design philosophy changes in order to stop her.
Yeah, Dasli Curse against Metal Seal, that's gonna do something.
More enemies were given Surge Immune.
You know, I think it would be kind of funny if cursing a zombie made it so that it can't burrow, for one, and can't revive. I think that would be a funny form of making Dasli the most busted Uber in the game again. Just simply making Curse better.
Which could vastly lower Dasli's damage output. Zappy, Nala, and many enemies from the Behemoth subtrait were given Surge Immunity, which made Dasli less effective against them. This really wasn't enough to stop Dasli's power, however.
I think so. A majority of behemoths are immune to surge. She only has 3k DPS at level 30 at that point. And like I said before, her base damage increases less than a normal Uber's will, just because her base damage isn't actually all that high. And so, you know, like, she still struggles against behemoths. Anything that's immune to surge, she struggles against more than a lot. Because, like, even Lucifer, I think, would be much better than things that are immune to surge. Because he does have a better base DPS, and he also, I think, has better standing range, better LD, better something else, better niche. Because unless, like, I will say, Dasli's curse is still nice, but its uptime is much shorter because of lack of surge damage. So Anubis do
As
go
these
hard though.
enemies weren't all that common, and other strong units like Courier could simply take over.
Metal ability was disabled by curse, bro. Guy is the bust Uber in the game. Yep,
And
I can agree with that.
overpower Dasli. Counter Surge was introduced later in ZL,
Counter
which let
surge
the
doesn't
enemy
do
units
much.
spawn their own surge if they were hit by one. Intended to have all of the players'
It
units
wasn't a
fight
typo,
if
I
they
know.
used Dasli's surge spam against these enemies. Dasli's surge immunity made it so that she simply didn't care if the enemies reflected surges back, and would just keep attacking as long as.
However, I will say, if the enemy is strong enough, like the iguana, like the relic iguana, that guy has high enough base damage for her for the level 3 counter surge to actually provide danger strictly because your meat shields can't handle it. So on Gokuraku, on this Angel Otter, his base damage isn't very high because his attack rate's really high. And so the level 3 counter surge is not that big of a deal. But with the Iguana, or literally any counter surging unit or enemy that has high base damage, because remember, counter surge takes the unit with counter surge's damage, but the level of the surge that it gets hit with. And so if you combine a level 3 surge with the iguana's base damage, then it is scary. So Gokuraku has knockback, yeah, that's a good thing because then you limit how much damage you're taking.
You protected her, with
That's the reason why normal Kazli doesn't actually get most of her damage off most of the time, because her knockback will cause her to really only get like one or two hits. Uh, so like you actually kind of want her to not get her knockback if you want her for damage.
other tanky or surge immune meat shields. I wouldn't say Dasli had a true counter until Ponos released some extremely overtuned boss enemies.
Yeah, bad. Like basically if you want to use Dasli against surging enemies or counter surging enemies, you're going to have to surround your loadout around immunity to surge, which is automatically giving you a hindrance because then you limit how many units you can or what units you can use. Limit what units like you're basically just limiting yourself and that's not something you want to do. I didn't mean to
Like
do that.
Saroctes or Banagrios. I think Ponos may have actually given up on trying to make enemies counter her, and instead turned towards trying to make another unit that was better than her in order to keep the power level lower on a relative scale. In a way, Ponos
Maybe?
would succeed with this goal and
I mean, I think they did a good job. I think that all they had to do was introduce counter surge in order to open the window for counters on Dasli because the like I said, the relic iguana actually pretty fucking carry like you don't want to use her against him because what you want to do is you want to not, screw over your things that are, you know, you want to not have that surge there because against specifically him, you do not want surge because you want to use courier. And Courier is not immune to Surge. So if you want to use him against whatever the fuck the iguana's name is, then you're going to not want a constant thing of counter Surge. Yeah, you don't even want to use Uriel against that guy. So you're definitely not going to want to use Dasli. So I like they have done a good job. Iguanade, what? Yeah, that guy, John. I'll call him John. If they bring him into ZL, which I'm sure they will again someday, you're not going to want to use Dasli against him. And so therefore, Ponos was successful in making a new counter for Dasli. and making you not want to use Dasli in a stage. And so they are successfully making it so that you're wanting to use her less. All they had to do was open the door with Counter Surge. And just pretty much any behemoth having immune to Surge.
Another Uber that could arguably be as powerful as Dasli. And upon the release of Update 12.0, the second member of the Big Three was
Who the fuck is the cat jobs against Iguana?
added to the game. His name, King of Destiny Fono.
Oh, this bitch? The one that's first
King
form
of
is like
Destiny
never
Fono,
something you want to
or
use.
Fono for short, was an Uberfest exclusive unit which served as a long-range sniper
Still
and
is,
backburner
bitch.
unit. It has a smaller and weaker first form, like most of the Uberfest units, but the form that was most valuable and the one we'll be looking at is his second form.
Specifically because of the 600 range. This is probably a hill I'll die on, but I don't know if I'll get. I don't know if people will really hold this against me. But the only reason why Fonoa is good is because of the 600 range. If Fonoa only had 400 standing range, he wouldn't be nearly as good as he is. He wouldn't even be top 10, I don't think. The only reason why he's as good as he is because of his 600 range.
Standing at an impressive 600 standing range, he can outrange the vast majority of enemies in the game. Fono's attack is composed of 3 hits which cover different ranges.
No, okay, and are we really going to get into this? His stats really are not that overpowered. His stats are not that overpowered. You want to look at this? Child of Destiny Fono. His stats are not that overpowered. His only overpowered stat is 600 range. His HP is the same as D'Artagnan's. His recharge time is longer than D'Artagnan's, but I mean, it's honestly above average. Like 140 is more than 2 minutes. I'd say 2 minutes is about average. His base DPS is only 4k. And like I mean massive damage, sure, but like on but like that's what times 4. And so that's 16k DPS. That's inconsistent because of the multi-hit. Now there is a 10 range. There is a 10 range where he hits all 3. But if he doesn't, most of the time, since he's not going to be hitting all 3, most of the time he'll only be hitting two out of the 3. 1 or 2 out of the 3. And so what he's going to end up doing. Oh, he also has a blind spot. I also want to mention that he does have a blind spot, which is kind of insignificant considering he hits up to 1,000. But yeah, like only hitting like 2/3 of his damage most of the time makes it so that he was really not that overpowered. His knockbacks is 5. His speed is honestly too high because he's going to end up rushing into the enemies ahead of your meat shields. And like his attack frequency is high. His damage is split because of the multi-hit, but it does stretch, don't get me wrong. Like it does go very far, which is really nice. But nothing nothing about his stats other than his 600 range strike me as overpowered. And he's not even immune to curse. He's immune to waves and surge, which is good, don't get me wrong. It is nice. Really good. But the only thing overpowered about him is his 600 range. That is the only overpowered part about Child of Destiny Fono.
Ranges, but do overlap slightly. Due to his massive damage ability against traded, his theoretical DPS is about 17,000 to the ones with fruits, and 12.7k to the ones without it. However, the range at which all 3 hits overlap only has a width of 10, meaning it is much more likely for just 2 of the 3 hits to land on a single target. Factoring this in, his DPS should be from 8.5k to 11.3k,
Which still isn't as good as Dasli.
The respective trait has fruit or not.
Against everything, by the way. So Dasli also has this DPS, better DPS, even against traitless.
This is still an incredibly impressive damage output at just level 30, and especially for a unit that has 600 range and the LD ability to extend his hits even farther.
The 600 range is the only reason why Fono is good.
Include both wave and surge immunity, a knockback count of 5, and a speed stat of 30. All of his other stats are pretty normal. I think that Fono is best described.
30 is normal? No. 30 is not normal speed. He rushes into the opponent.
Word, and that word
if you're using slow meat shields, that's bad.
Compared to an Uber like Dasli, who is fundamentally broken in both obvious and hit.
And don't forget, he can still hit only 1 of his 3 hits. It is still somewhat common for him to only hit one of
in
three.
ways. I think Fono is simply too strong because his numbers are too high. He
Only
simply
his
does too
range is
much
too high.
damage.
His damage ain't even that high. For a massive damage, it's not very high. It's not even it doesn't even, with 2 out of 3, he doesn't even hit as much DPS as a Mataratsu does. It's only his range, and I guess his extending LD
And
is
too high of a range
is
with too
good.
long of a reach. For a
His piercing reach is really good because it reaches up to 1,000. I will give him that, but his standing range is the only reason why he can actually manage to hit that far. So therefore, his standing range is the only reason why he's good.
unit whose sole purpose is
Because think of Kana. Kana can reach up to 1,000. I think even further. I think it's like 1050. And yet she doesn't have as much standing range. She only has like 400 standing range. So the difference between Kana and Fonoa is that basically that standing range, because their multi hits somewhat similar. Kana does have the surge, but that's besides the point. But Fonoa is arguably the best super in the game. Meanwhile, Kana is specifically an anti-black specialist, and behemoth specialist. Shut up, bed. Am I wrong about Kana reaching up to 1050? I know she reaches far. That's all I know though. Kana, but yeah, like what I yeah, 400 standing range, and she can reach up to 1,000. Oh, exactly 1,000. Okay, so they have almost the same. They actually have almost the same LD, which is kind of crazy. Holy shit! Her first hit reaches longer than her second hit. I had no idea, but that's besides the point. Adventure Kana is not even considered for anywhere near top tier Uber. Meanwhile, Fonoa is arguably best. To be fair, he does have much better generalist DPS. This is without the surge, though. This is without the surge, remember, which she has level 3. But keep that in mind. The main difference between Kana and Fono is the standing range and damage. That is the main difference, and the damage is still good on Kana. It's the standing range that really makes a difference.
to damage.
Better than Dasli's surge wall.
He fulfills his role extremely well, melting all
Hmm.
treated enemies on the field without many complications. He could be used in pretty much any stage type, really only fearing enemy super backliners. The curse ability could technically lower his damage output, but his standing range
Oh, that's true. Kana's yeah, I understand that's why, but I also realized something. Congratulations, Cash. Also, hello. Sorry, I don't think I said hi. I also want to mention something. Kana reaches technically farther than Fonoa. And now I know what you're thinking. They both reach up to 1,000. Well, Fonoa's standing range is 600. Kana's standing range is 400. What's that have to do with anything? The 1,000 range pierce from them is from them. So Kana is more likely to hit the base from way farther away than or sorry, she's more likely to hit the base whenever hitting something than Fonoa is. Because Kana gets closer but still reaches 1,000 from herself. Meanwhile, Fonoa stays farther back and still only reaches 1,000 from him. So Kana technically reaches farther just because of her lower standing range. So she's more likely to actually snipe the base than Fonoa is. That's a fun fact. Doesn't really prove anything. I'm just saying that's a fun fact.
is so high that this hardly ever happens, not to mention the fact that his LD counters enemies like
All 3 hits can overlap too on what Fonoa, because most of the time it won't. I don't know about Kana though.
Lowest
I know I just
limit.
looked at it, but
Upon his release, players instantly started comparing him with Dasli, as both of these
doesn't Kana also have the issue of base hugging though? Like, isn't that just literally anybody with LD?
Ubers were far above anything else in power. Some thought that newcomer Fono was the stronger one,
Kana can
and
overlap.
others
Okay,
thought that Dasli remained the strongest. But
they
it
have
really didn't.
these two have completely different roles though. One's a super backliner, the other's an LDer, crowd controller. So I think it depends on the stage heavily. Like if there's an anteater without much stepping stones, then Fonoa is superior. But most of the time you're going to have stepping stones. Most of the time that's not going to actually be an enemy. So Doesn't Fono have way too low range on first hit? It's 250,
Matter,
I
which
think,
was the
right?
slightly better one,
So I don't know.
as it simply became accepted that regardless of the order,
Wait, no, 250 to isn't his first hit 250 to 600? Second hit is like 450, and then last hit starts at 590. Isn't that how it works? 250 is not base
these two
hogging.
Ubers
Yeah.
were the two best Ubers in the game. The next closest Uber, whether that was a Mitama or a D'Artagnan, was simply
No,
not
gave
on the
up.
same level as these two. However, you could say that there was a third Uber that matched the power of Dasli and
What is your
Fono.
favorite pop? My favorite pop is Pepsi. That should be obvious by now. Dark Phono base hogs? I
But
think
this
maybe?
Uber
I
was
don't remember.
unlike any other top Uber before. In fact, he didn't even come out after Dasli and Fono, but rather beforehand. The Uber I'm talking about is, of course, Balrog.
Balrog. Balrog.
Lesser Demon Cat, or Balrog Cat in true form, is an Uber with a lot of history. He's one of the oldest Ubers in the game, coming out with the inception of the Dynamite banner in version 2.0.5.
Damn, he really
Was a
do be
melee
old.
attacker with decent bruiser stats, having an exceptional amount of damage output and enough health to tank some hits. Lesser Demon also had weaken immunity, a low cost for an Uber at 3000, and a relatively fast cooldown of 28 seconds. However, Lesser Demon Cat had a low range of 180, and single target, making it difficult for him to land hits on certain enemies or groups of many.
50k HP as a non-true formed level 30 is actually still pretty good though.
This major weakness prevented Lesser Demon Cat from being too useful, and he was typically ranked rather low on tier lists until his true form came out. Update 5.0 saw a true form for him called Balrog Cat,
Dude,
which
I
increased
love
his
this
health
design
by
so much though.
34% and his damage by 66%. These stat changes mostly
That'll help.
improved Balrog's brawling power, giving him a massive 28k DPS at level.
You know, I'm gonna say it. The biggest buff Balrog ever got was the ability to level him up past level 30. That's the biggest buff that Balrog ever got. It's a better buff than his talents. Well, yeah, no, because the difference between leveling him from level 30 to level 50, I think, is more than the difference between level 30 or the difference with level 30 max talents. Not counting the strength, and obviously, so like attack and HP up talents. So,
Level 30, almost matching Awakened Bahamut's DPS. It was now easier to get more value at Balrog than before, and you might assume that this true form would have given him at least a decent rating in the meta.
Grum, that's not what I was saying, but true. I mean, I guess, yeah.
After looking through old tier lists,
You think Balrog gets glazed a little too much? Let's see. I mean, here's the thing, right? I don't think there's any denying that he's really good. Like, yeah, he's still fantastic. But I don't know if you realize just how much damage per hit he's getting. Like, I'm not. You guys know me. I'm not one to glaze Balrog at all. But at level 50, he has 100,000 damage in one hit. And then with talents, that. Oh, wait, you know what? I don't even need a calculator. I was going to open up a calculator. I don't need one because this is 100,000 damage in one hit at level 50. Get his strengthen, that's 300,000 damage in one hit. Get his attack buff? Hey, well, no, sorry. Let me do the attack buff first. The attack buff is 20%, so that's 120,000 damage per hit. Multiply that by 360,000 damage in one hit. That is comparable to Lasvos. You want to see how much damage Lasvos does in one hit? Uh, yeah, 150. He, if he gets strengthened, at level 30, which this is somebody known to, have a longest attack frequency. I am comparing level 50 to level 30, but to be fair, Lasbos is a nuker with much longer attack frequency. So at level 30, with his strengthen, he does 220,000 damage. And you know what? Let's go ahead and give him this. So the attack buff 20% on this. So what? A fifth, that is 30, so 180 plus 50%. So 270,000 damage. At level 50, with the same talents as Lasvos, Greater Balrog has more damage in one hit, when strengthened, of course, than Lasvos. And Meanwhile, Balrog does have a very quick attack frequency, much quicker recharge time, very cheap cost, and actually good survivability. Well, I say that, not really, but I mean, you're gonna buff him anyways. Also, much quicker attack force swing. So, like, I don't think he's glazed too much. I think people just overestimate how often you're going to use a single targeting melee.
I couldn't find any from 5.0, but the earliest one I did find, being a visualizer of the version 7.2 tier list, places Balrog in
It's
the
a
C+
pyramid scheme.
tier. Not very good, considering that this is the second lowest tier in the list. It appeared that during this time,
The meta has also
Balrog's big
changed.
flaws of being clunky and having both single target and low range made it so he was very impractical on the field.
I like how people act like that's not what ZL is, though. Barg getting juggled. The only reason why Barg doesn't get juggled in ZL is because you're going to boost him up to level 50, which is hence me saying him getting levels is actually the most valuable buff Balrog's ever gotten.
Start to look
Levels
better
past
when
30 is
version
the best buff
8.1
he's ever
dropped,
gotten.
giving Balrog his very infamous talents. The most important one was a plus 200%.
That is dog shit, because he'll only get like 1 or 2 hits off when strengthened. Because strengthening with the last knockback is not a good thing. I'm just saying, his strengthen is overrated as fuck. It's actually his base 20% damage increase that's actually good, and HP increase.
When at 33% health and lower, increasing both his damage per hit and his DPS to ludicrous numbers. And
Balrog's not required at all for late game. He's nice, and I used him against Zero Luza 2 and 3 star, but I could have definitely beaten it without.
just level 37.
Blue Impact is something you can try to do. I'm fairly certain it's. Is it balanced around COTC 2 or 3? I don't remember, but you can try it.
A strengthened Balrog would have over 100,000 DPS without needing a specific trait to target.
And then. Wait, this isn't right. Is it? Oh, DPS. Okay, it's right. Sorry.
Individual
DPS. My
strengthened hits
bad.
became giant nukes
I
that
thought he
did
was meaning
hundreds of
damage per
thousands of
hit.
damage and were capable of one-shotting many enemies, as well as melting down bosses and tanky enemies. His other talents included a wave resist, which wasn't the most useful, and a cost down talent, bringing him down to 2,250 cost from 3,000. Balrog also
Which honestly is an overrated talent. I'm like cost down is not a great talent no matter what, for the most part. Like unless something's like over a 5,000 cost down is not gonna make that big of a deal.
had the standard HP and attack up talents, which were great for a melee attacker like him. With these giant number increases, this surely is where Balrog becomes one of the best Ubers in the game, right? There's no other changes to this unit from then to today, so this strength
Level 60
talent must have surely made all the difference. So let's play a game. Where do you think Balrog ended up on the tier list after his strengthen was added? That's right.
B+.
With all his efforts combined, Balrog was moved to the B tier. Great job.
Oh, not even B+.
Now
Damn.
you might be wondering, if this is the same Balrog we have today, who's in the big 3 Ubers, how was he placed?
Bro, Can got the final hit. That's funny. Can is a better Balrog because you also get money from using her, and she's cheaper and more spammable and comparable damage.
At B tier when his talents came out. And to answer that question, there's a lot of factors to consider. The first and most obvious one is stage meta. Most people nowadays conclude that modern stages, like UL,
You're
Zero,
not
and
doing
other
it,
late game
unfortunate
content is
Cash.
the best place for Balrog to shine. In his
and easily accessible, and I mean, you know, Can. Can also, bring support against red and aliens. Just saying. The DPS not comparable? Yeah, but the cost is a fifth of the cost of Balrog. The recharge time is, I think, like half, and the stats are still comparable. Whenever you're comparing like a level 50 Balrog to a level 80 Can.
compatibility with early
The only thing Can lacks is strengthen.
game content like Stories of Legends was not as good. This is technically true, as Balrog is better in that meta environment.
And Can outranges Bun, unlike Balrog. So Can's actually better against Bun variants.
But he still was a beast in Stories of Legend, deleting difficult
Nah, I bet I
enemies
won't.
with a single
Because
swipe.
I don't know how I'd find it.
A bigger role in Balrog's low position on the list was actually methodology. Way back then, in around version 8.1 and before, most Battlecat's Uber tier lists.
Yeah, like the meta was clearly just different. Can you guys believe D'Artagnan used to be one of the best Ubers? Now everybody shits on him. Can you guys believe that? SS tier, by the way. Can you believe everybody shits on him now? It's fucking crazy. As soon as D'Artagnan came out, everybody's like, oh my god, D'Artagnan's dog shit because he's missing HP. He still has good HP. Like, or decent HP at least. Like, look, D'Artagnan is an SS tier right now. As soon as D'Artagnan came out, D'Artagnan started getting shat on. It's crazy.
Rank Ubers based on a generalist methodology, or measuring how well their generalist performance was.
Grom,
Now,
you
this
son
does
of a
seem
bitch. YouTube, you can't see channel redeems, but somebody just redeemed that I chug a soda. Pop, whatever the fuck. Bro, how long have I been streaming? I've been streaming for an hour and I'm only halfway through the video. Can y'all let me watch the fucking video? God. Thank God I've been saving a Fanta. One last Fanta for this specific moment. For the next time I was forced to redeem this. Or forced to chug this. I should have gotten it out and prepared and like made it warm. Chugging a warm pop would have been much easier. You hope it's flat? Nah, it's straight from the fridge. It's a clean can. Here, just so that we don't waste too much time, I'm going to keep the video going while I try to chug it.
Contradictory at first glance, as Balrog's damage output works versus enemies regardless of trait. But the
He's basically a specialist because of a single attack. Okay, I'll actually drink now.
methodology also assumed that the player had extremely few or just one Uber in deciding their placement. Under these rules, having a unique unit like Balrog would mean depriving yourself of a standard generalist backliner, which was the gold standard back in the day. Units like Amaterasu, Ragnarok, and Shishilan were all placed super high on the tier list for their amazing generalist backliner roles. While this does seem like a weird way to judge Ubers, do note that progression and rewards were much worse back then compared to now, making Ubers and gacha in general harder to get. This is also why you saw a lot of no gacha guides back then. You can see that as the methodology of Battlecat's tier list started straying away from the old generalist methodology, Balrog started to rise up the tier list dramatically.
10.4 D'Artagnan still in still in S tier, by the way. How the mighty have fallen. Jesus Christ.
But there was still one more important part of the picture on why Balrog was placed so low back then, and it comes down to the unit meta. Nowadays, we have a lot of better options to support Balrog, such as Rock, Slime, Courier, and more. Some might say we're in a Rusher meta right now, which complements Balrog's archetype as he is a melee.
You know what's funny? Now that we're in a Rusher meta, D'Artagnan is still labeled as like shit now. It's so fucked. Also, I'm still drinking this shit. I just got a yap, you know?
Attacker with a decent amount of speed, able to join the battle with all your other Rusher and Chip units. But more than just having good units to support him, I think the most important change is that players simply learned more about Balrog. Whether that be how to use Balrog for optimal value.
Nah, level 50 happened. That's what happened. As soon as level 50 got unlocked, Balrog became nutty.
Or understand some of his more niche strengths, players learned that Balrog had more in show than they first thought years ago. In a similar way to Dasli, Balrog had his obvious strengths, the gigantic damage output capable of soloing Ulala, but there were many more aspects that got underlooked which all contribute to making Balrog as good as he is. Let's start off with the general idea. Balrog is a melee unit. This makes him perform.
Oh wow, he's using Balrog in floor 47 or 46, I think. No, is this 44 or 46? Whichever, it's 46. Wow, you're using Balrog in a stage that I beat with a CPU strat. So good. Wow. Balrog can beat a stage that can be done automatically by CPU without even any fucking Ubers. Wow, so impressive.
Exponentially better when boosted, because melee units have their
I know
increased
Infernal
when both
Tower.
health and damage go up.
I know. Infernal Tower is the one I did with the CPU strat.
while most backliners typically only need the damage increase. At level 30, Balrog is already strong, but when you increase his level to 40, 50, and even 60 nowadays, his power compared to Ubers of the same level becomes much stronger.
Okay, I got the Fanta
Stat
down.
talents work the same way, making them much more valuable than buying stat talents on a regular backline Uber. So let's take a look
Better
at
than
level 50
Sprite,
talent
but
against Balrog,
God,
something both
I don't
attainable
feel good.
today and back in 8.1. 126k HP, 121k damage.
To be fair, every stage is possible Uberless. This stage is done with a CPU. It's possible to be done with a CPU and not even like that good of units.
Hit and 53k DPS. Balrog has a ton of health and
This stage, me, one of the fucking dumbest Battle Cats players probably managed to make a CPU strat for it. It's not that hard of a stage.
can get in to land hits on the vast majority.
By the time you by the time you make it to Infernal Tower 46, it's not a hard stage.
Enemies in the game. Upon reaching his last knockback, the strength then raises his damage to 360k per hit and an unmatched 160k DPS. Any enemy Balrog is capable of attacking gets torn to shreds.
I'll pass on Scotland. I'm not a traveler.
And I don't think that needs much more of an explanation. But perhaps the tricky part is getting Balrog to land all his swings against the target you want in the first place. He is single target after all. Peons in the way can absorb his hits, making his damage output not stable.
Now that's...
Well,
you know what I never realized? Slime plus Balrog is a really good combo. Maybe Slime is the reason why Balrog's actually good. Nothing else in this video about Balrog matters. Slime is the only reason why Balrog's actually good nowadays. Thoughts?
that would be the case, if not for the fact that your
I do
lineup
remember
has
that video
9
cache. I reacted to it a while back.
Clearing peons is very easy to do by just spamming your usual attackers, whether that be Courier, Can, Pizza, or anything else you
Can's not for clearing peons. Courier's not used later in the game. And did he say Pizza? Pizza's too slow.
brought. Slime waves can clear giant amounts of peons on demand.
It's mainly Slime.
And even back in the day, we had units like Manic Legs who could clear small peons on the field, or a giant amount of Paris spam that would whack away anything smaller. You don't even really have to go out of your way to do this, as you should already have tons of peon clearing from the normal attackers you brought to a stage. The trickier part is actually utilizing his bulk to land hits on strong damaging enemies, such as
so level 50.
Balrog's endurance of about 40k is enough for him to land a swipe on some high DPS enemies without getting knocked back.
Well,
But
really.
if you mess up by
Kind of looks like he's failing to get his hits in.
then
Balrog got one hit and it was not his strengthen hit. And people are over here telling me that his strengthen is his most valuable talent. Can't even get a fucking strengthen hit on a phone on Aros.
he won't be able to land it sometimes. For many enemies in the game though, Balrog's bulk is more than enough to land hits on important targets, assassinating high priority enemies.
This is a weak ass Ursa Major though.
To the field. Even if you don't have a level 50 maxed Balrog, your lower level Balrog likely has all the proper bulk he needs.
Okay, maybe
for
it's not
whatever
that
part of the
weak.
game you're in.
But notice how it
Balrog
still got
movement
2
is
knockbacks on
engaged,
Balrog
the state of the
alone.
stage is massively changed, as doing hundreds of thousands of damage would pretty clearly do. This is enough to turn losses into wins, and hard fights into easy ones. Balrog's high damage per hit, strengthened or not, also allows him to juggle certain bosses, like Yulala or Cappy Jr. Even on bosses.
Oh, it's 3-star? Okay, that's fair then. I don't know much about it. I'm just criticizing Balrog because I don't think he deserves top 3. Like I know this isn't him defending. I know this isn't really him thinking that Balrog is top 3. I know it's just him explaining it. But you know, I'm showing my, hatred for Balrog being quote unquote top 3.
Where one strengthened Balrog hit isn't enough.
Fly 1 doesn't have LD because it doesn't need it.
By combining
And it's also old. I don't think Cly 1 was released whenever LD existed. Because Into the Future 1 Moon is actually really fucking old. So I don't think LD existed at the time.
it with your other units, you can reach proper damage thresholds to be able to permanently juggle some of the strongest enemies in the game, like Cappy Kawano and Behemoth Luza. But what I think is the most overlooked aspect of his kit, and also his strongest aspect, is the cooldown. Balrog has an insanely fast cooldown for an Uber, coming in at 28.2 seconds. The average cooldown for an Uber typically tends to be anywhere from 90
Yeah, his
to
cooldown is the
150
only.
seconds, meaning that Balrog
Okay, what kind of average is including an entire minute? And that's not how average works. That's more of a range of an Uber cooldown rather than an average. I'd say meet in the middle and call that the average. So 120 seconds, aka 2 minutes. Just call it like why? Find the median. You thought it existed by then? I have no idea if LD existed at Into the Future Chapter 1. No fucking idea.
comes back multitudes faster. For a comparison of how fast this really is, imagine you spawn Balrog and Housewife, a super rare, at the same time. Super rares are meant to be stacked in groups, so they obviously have much
Housewife has range though, and it's stackable, so I'd say you should probably compare Balrog's recharge time to Can's more.
faster cooldown than Ubers. Normally, you get tons and tons of Housewives on the field before you get
Balrog versus Can would be a more accurate
but in this
comparison.
You'll actually be getting your second Balrog on the field back before your third Housewife, meaning that Balrog as an Uber competes with super rares for cooldown. And this isn't even the slowest
the Iron, not the Iron Legion, the Ultra Souls exist. The Dynamites, nah, the Dynamite. Well, I guess, well, Balrog is the Dynamite to be fair, but I think he's the only one with less than a minute cooldown, or like like less than 40-second cooldown. I'm trying to think what all Ubers have quick recharge time. I feel like there's got to be more, but I just can't think of them.
super rare.
But
Gotcha
Ultra
units like
Souls.
Tathagata Cat and Delinquent Cat have a 39.2 and 34.2 second cooldown respectively. So we have an Uber with some of the best stats in the entire game being deployed at a similar rate to a super rare cat. This fundamentally
That's dumb. That's dumb. Like it's not the labeling. It's not the labeling that matters. Like saying that an uber rare can spawn as often as a super rare is a bad that's a bad way to do things. Yuki, I don't know his recharge time. But like that's a bad way to label things because every Uber and every super rare are going to be different. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a bad, it's a bad way of putting it. Uh, it's a bad way of putting it. That's what I'm trying to say. Because every Uber is going to be different, every super rare is going to be different. Like it's really not a good way of comparing Uber to super rare. I'd say it's more so a unit with the stats of an uber rare, but with the recharge time of a super rare. You know what I mean? Because like, what if the uber rare is super underpowered, but it has the recharge time of a super rare? Is at that point it's basically just a super rare, but that is labeled as an uber rare. Labeling doesn't matter. The labels do not matter in that scenario. So like I wouldn't I just think that's interesting. Like I don't think that's the way to do it. Like yeah, Jizo. Jizo's comparable to Paris, but you wouldn't say, "Oh, this uber rare is comparable to a rare," because that would undersell the Uber. You know what I mean? Like like I'm just saying. It
changes everything when it
it's
comes to
it's weird.
Balrog. A
It's not a
unit
good
like
way to do
Dasli
things,
has a cooldown of 124.5 seconds, which
which
is
is
not bad at
average.
all for an Uber of her class.
Just say it's average. Earlier you said average was 90 to 150 seconds. 120 is right in the middle, aka average or the median, if you really want to say that. But it's average. 120 seconds is average at this point. I think most people can agree on that.
But in the Dasli versus Balrog comparison, you aren't comparing one Dasli to one Balrog. You're essentially comparing one Dasli to four Balrogs. And
Yeah,
well,
4 Balrogs can't even reach it. Like 4 Balrogs. What's 180 times 4? You guys, you want to do the math since you made me do fucking a Fanta chug? I'm kidding. It reaches 720, right? So 180 times 4 is 720. That barely passes the range of, how far one Dasli can reach. So they're not comparable, is what I'm trying to say. They're not comparable. That's like comparing Can to Dragon. Like that, they're not comparable. It's simple as that. They have completely different roles, and therefore you're not going to use them as a comparison to each other. It's just not right. They're not a good comparison. So it's
for Balrogs.
as somebody that makes analogies and comparisons a lot of the time whenever I'm making jokes and stuff, that's a bad comparison.
Is a lot of Balrogs. Balrog's output is also extremely fast, meaning that you don't have to focus as much on defending the.
And remember, Balrog does have 3 knockbacks, meaning that he cannot actually reliably get a hit in, especially not nowadays with everything having crazy DPS. He also is lacking immunities. His only thing even close to reminiscing of an immunity is his resist to wave. That's it. And it's only resist. He's not immune to anything. He's not immune to surge. He's not immune to warp. He's not immune to knockback. He's not immune to any of that. So chances are he's going to get juggled most of the time. He is weakened immune. Yeah, that's only good against Hanya and Klein 1, I guess. But like, let's be real. His weakened immune is like, I mean, I guess Heavenly Pig is one of them. But like, his damage is so high that even when weakened, his damage is still going to be good as long as it's 50%. Like Heavenly Pig, I mean, most of the time Heavenly Pig nowadays has some sort of backup that would probably still be able to knock back Balrog and juggle him. Especially since Balrog has to get real close to Pig in order to hit it. Well, yeah, for less than 3 times. Wait, for more or less. What do you mean by that? So 13 minutes. We have 13 minutes. Are you saying will I make it last another 30 minutes? So basically, will the stream? I'm gonna end the stream after this reaction. So do you just want to say will the stream reach 2 hours long? Does that work for you? He can technically be immune to waves. That's if you have to have a fucking S orb. So he would have to have the max talented for wave resist, and he also has to have the S orb, specifically the S orb. Anything less than that won't work. Okay. I guess I'll make a prediction. YouTube, be patient. Will stream last another 40 minutes. That's what I'll say. There.
The field 24/7 and protecting him from being killed.
Especially now that I've drank all that Fanta, I want this to end sooner. Just saying.
You simply have to prepare your defenses for the next few seconds that Balrog will be attacking the enemies. It's a lot more flexible and allows Balrog to work in almost.
Did he even get an attack in there?
You simply have to prepare your defense 24/7 and protecting him.
Okay, he got a single attack in. Oh wait, this is the same clip as before. Never mind.
Or Balrog to work in almost any strategy. Even in a worst case scenario, where Balrog dies without landing any hits at all, you're down just 2,250 cash, less than the price of 2 slapsticks.
Yeah, people know that that's the same cost as Dancer, right? And the main reason why Dancer's not used is because it's way too expensive for what it's worth. Bed, I refuse. I refuse to get up and get another water. I refuse. You're broke now? Unfortunate.
And your next Balrog is coming back in under half a minute. This makes Balrog unlike any other Uber in the game, because you essentially aren't even really punished for losing the Uber.
Yeah, you are. Not every stage is made of money. Unless a stage works well with Can and Bullet Train to give you money, you're not gonna actually have the money to constantly spam Balrog. And you still gotta time him in a lot of scenarios.
You mess up and kill your dad.
Then at least refund me? How do I refund you? I don't know how to refund you, man. Just win a prediction. 250 points ain't that much.
Your next one back. But Balrog doesn't care whether he did absolutely nothing or soloed an entire boss. He'll always come back quickly to help you destroy the stage even further. Another thing that makes Balrog a lot better
He's
is
also
the
not immune to
Thunderbolt
slow, so
mechanic.
he just got fucking railed by Dapu there.
You may be aware of the Slime plus T-Bolt combination, a deadly combo that guarantees Slime hits a target and lands its powerful
Only if you have a
shockwave
level
to
30
deal tons
Thunderbolt,
of
though.
damage on the field. Slime plus T-Bolt
Or a high level Thunderbolt, I
is a
guess.
strong force, capable of greatly swinging the tide of battle on many stages. With Balrog, we can do something similar, where we utilize T-Bolt to allow Balrog to land his strengthen hit on any target we want. Hundreds of thousands
Didn't
of
even
damage
kill the
on any
fucking
target you
Aros.
want is
I know
insane
it's 3-star,
utility,
but damn.
and the best part about this
I'm
combo
assuming
is
this
that
is
the
level
Can
50.
recharges every 50 seconds, meaning that basically every other Balrog you deploy will be able to do the combo.
Wow, one hit. Crazy.
At the very minimum, a
And that also relies on there not being anything in front of what you're trying to hit.
360k strike on any enemy you want at level 50. You might have thought Balrog was a situational setup unit, powerful in the right scenarios, but a struggle in many others. But in reality, Balrog's stats are so overtuned that simply brain-dead spamming Balrog on every stage in the game is going to generate absurd value. You can try to
Why is that the footage why are we just getting footage of meat shield spam here?
Balrog on
Why
every
is this
stage
the
in the game
footage?
is going to generate absurd value. You can try to time and optimize every single Balrog you deploy, which is going to completely destroy the game really fast. But if you don't, and instead just spam him off cooldown, his high damage contributions to the field are still going to be extremely impactful, and more than enough of a power boost for you to beat 99% of the game.
He got one hit off on a meat shield there. Just want to mention
For
that.
this reason,
So now he
Balrog
gets
might
in
be one
there
of the
and
few units in the
he...
game that you can consider
Okay, he
almost
barely gets the
uncounterable.
hit in.
He simply brings too much value to any stage that isn't filled with metals,
And then he
to where
dies.
there's no reason not to bring him. It's kind of
Uncounterable due to generating too much value? Like Can-Can. Can-Can generates value from killing things with double cash. Balrog generates value with damage, right? But why? Like, but he's 3 times the cost. I'm pretty sure he has a longer recharge time than Can-Can. He's slower. I think he actually has like similar HP and damage base, not strengthened, to Can-Can. Like by the time you get him to level 50, you're probably going to have like at least a level 60 or 70 Can-Can. So like similar value per. How the fuck is Balrog arguably the best Uber? I just don't get it.
to any stage that isn't filled with metals, to where there's no reason not to bring him.
He works in so few stages though. Like I know everybody's like, "Oh my god, it's the meta. It's the meta. There's like no peons anymore." There's a fucking little doge right there. There's still peons. And even just distracting one hit from Balrog can absolutely cause him to just get juggled more than a fucking clown juggling bowling pins. Like it's hard to use him in most scenarios. Like some stages, there are stages. Don't get me wrong, there are stages where you can spam him and you'll get value from him. That's just not going to work with every stage, especially with 2 and 3 crown, because enemies in UL, whenever they're crown stages, they're going to have a shit ton of DPS. And so it's just going to make it that much harder for Balrog to get even just 1 or 2 hits in. And at that point, it's not worth it. At that point, just use Bullet Train, Supercar, Can-Can, like, consistent damagers that you don't have to really rely on and that are easier to time. Balrog's just not worth it.
It's kind of like if Can-Can, the widely agreed upon best super rare, was on steroids and also an
It's actually just a Can-Can with strength and at a third health. It's really not that... It's Balrog ain't on that many steroids. Thanks to level boosting, just level Can-Can up to level 50. And, actually properly plus level your Can-Can. And there you go. You have a Balrog, basically.
Balrog's archetype also just makes him compatible with the harder
Except Can-Can also has more range, so she's actually less bullyable. Or they are less bullyable than Balrog is.
stages in the game, as a stage that is just enemy spam which counters Balrog is usually just completely free stages.
Hey look at all this space where there's no Balrog.
Your non-Uber area attackers. On stages with some spam and then some dangerous boss threats, which are most of the stages in the game, Balrog can help chunk down the bosses and works very well. And lastly, Balrog's identity is something you can't get anywhere.
He's replaceable by Can. He's replaceable by Can. Does nobody understand this? He is replaceable by Can.
Else. When comparing the life,
You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna compare Balrog stats to Can stats. Fuck it. I'll prove my point. One way or another. What is it? Dancer? No. The fuck is the name of Can? I'll just hip hop. That's what it is. Used to like beefier Can? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay, so this is level 30. Let's compare level 80, right? My Can is level 8. Well, maybe, maybe we can do 70. We'll do a level 70 Can. I mean, here's the thing, right? It is hard to find somebody that's an Uber that is similar to that of Balrog, right? It is hard to find somebody similar to Balrog as an Uber. But Can is very similar to Balrog, in all honesty. Okay, so in one hit, this is level 70 compared to level 50, which I honestly think is an unfair comparison. I think it should be like level 40 to 70 or like 50 to 80, but this is what I'll do just because some people speedrun the game and don't actually have many plus levels. So 78,000 attack power compared to 100,000, right? So 22,000 attack power difference, right? Which seems meh, right? Can has less than half the recharge time, with about 75% of the damage, while also thanks to talents having uh much more, like 80% more speed. So you're more likely to get a hit in, and you're also going to get it in quicker, while also having, thanks to talents, money up. And she does also get the defense and attack buff that Balrog gets, plus more range, and oh, I didn't look at their HP, but I think isn't Can's HP identical to damage? Yeah, attack power. So like 78,000 attack power, and his so about 75% of the HP as well. But with better survivability because of the knockbacks, so more likely to actually get the second hit in. While also, I mean, 6.5 second attack frequency isn't actually that bad. Balrog still, I mean, can sometimes not get a hit in, but if Ken's getting bullied, then probably so would Balrog. Like Can with the higher speed, with Can's higher speed, it's actually more likely to get a hit in than Balrog is. Balrog's so slow that he can be in the opponent's range much longer than Can will be, and not be able to get a hit in. And then Balrog also has less range, so gets bullied by Buns if timed wrong, which, since they rapid hit, it's pretty easy to time wrong. And he also still, like I said earlier, has 3 knockbacks, so it is kind of likely for him to just get juggled without, like, a ton of investment, which is what they're talking about, is a lot of investment. But even then, he can still get juggled. And I mean, he still has that second long attack frequency or attack force swing, which, just saying, is something to consider. And 28-second recharge time compared to 12, again, like less than half the recharge time for way more than half the stats, plus more standing range, plus more movement speed. I think can, and also double cost, or double money up. Get your money up before you get your money up. You know what I mean? Like, I think can is just a better, more accessible general Balrog.
likes of Dasli and Fono, a lot of their strengths and main power overlaps. They do a giant amount of LD generalist DPS, and this can be replicated with other Ubers too, like a Ganesha. You won't ever get a one-to-one clone of Dasli or Fono.
I get your point, Bed, and I do actually agree. They are similar, but Cats and Nostrola has much more AoE than Balrog since he has single targeting. They have wave and area attack plus Omni with the Ultra Form.
But you can replicate their role.
Using them together is pretty good. Yeah, using them together is fine. But like, why use them together if they both provide the same exact usage? Because like having a single targeting nuker isn't actually something that like helps that much in most stages. Like, it's very rare that you need one. It's very rare that you actually would want to use Balrog as, it's very rare that he works as well as he would and say like Zero Luza, right? Zero Luza works. He works against Zero Luza because Zero Luza has a slow attack frequency, and Bar can manage to get strengthened by Luza. And he can handle the peons very well. Can also works there. That's one of the few stages where you would probably want to use both of them. But most of the time, you're not going to want to use two slots in order to get Can and Balrog in there. You would rather have something with range, another meat shield, a combo, uh, you know, some a waiver, like that. You would rather have something with a different role. You won't really want to have something that provides the same usage except slightly worse thanks to Ken's double cash in the same loadout. You're going to want one or the other for the most part, and I would rather Can because of the double cash being able to be used for peons, cash, and damage as nuker rather than Balrog's specific use as a single hit nuker. I get what you're saying, Dad.
Decently well with a unit like Ganesha. There is nothing in the game even remotely close to Balrog, making him not just one of the best, but also one of the most unique units. No matter what.
That's like saying Dasli's unique. Because, like, I don't know. Balrog ain't that unique. He's just a single targeting nuker. Like, I guess he's unique, but like, eh. His uniqueness does not just being unique is not all it takes to be a valuable Uber. That's not all it takes to be a valuable Uber. Like he may be unique whenever it comes to Ubers, because can single targeting nukers, they're rare. Single targeting nukers are rare. I'll give you that. But now that Izanagi exists, it is less rare. And can is a super rare, so technically doesn't count as uber rare uniqueness, but it does still, take away Balrog's, hey, I'm one of a kind. You know what I mean? And it's also he has such little range. Like, I feel like we're in a day and age where sure rushers do well for UL and stuff like that, but I genuinely think that once you get into ZL, you value range a hell of a lot more than anything else. Like, ZL can still be rushed down, but you're going to want range. Uh, like, that's why the Phonos are so good, is because they have that range. They have the rushing ability. They have damage as well. They have all of it rather than just one or the other. So I genuinely think that range is more valuable than damage and speed as of where we are at in the game. Because I'm considering ZL the current meta, not starred UL. Because starred UL is not necessary in order to progress into the game.
Other units you have, Balrog is always a game-changing addition to your
Not
arsenal.
always.
With everything in mind, it's probably easier now to understand why Balrog is a contender for the best Uber in the game.
Nah, top 10
among powerhouses
at the
like
most.
Dasli and Fono. Players back then weren't aware of how good Balrog truly was, and as the game progressed,
Because they
community finally
realized that Slime
understood.
didn't. It's the reason why I think whenever Slime came around to be a peon clear, that's when people started realizing Balrog's good. So Slime and Can carry Balrog nowadays.
How good he was. Funnily
I don't think range up combos are a good idea because that would be so weird.
enough, if we look at tier lists from the JP and KR communities back then, they valued Balrog extremely highly, much higher than EN did. You could almost say we were late to the party in discovering how good Balrog really was. Sometime
He's a brainless Uber. What do you mean BCEN just sucks? He's a brainless Uber. You just spam him whenever you get him.
after the release of Fono is when the big three terms started to get used by players, comparing Dasli, Fono, and Balrog, and noticing that they were the clear three best Ubers in the game.
He's literally the definition of caveman Uber because of his little fucking stick that he whacks things with.
Old big three, with each of the three powerful units doing different things but all being incredibly strong. The big three wouldn't go too long without competition, however. As in update 12.3, we got a new Uber that can contest a spot as one of the best Ubers in the game.
Now it's the big
King
four.
of Extinction Fono.
Not really, you still need to time him right. His speed is so low that it's not like timing Manju or Can or Bullet Train. It's not the same as that. So there's really like the only timing there is to be done with Balrog is against Luza with his low attack rate, sure. But like you're really just placing him after the attack. That's a no-brainer. And I mean the only thing you're timing with Balrog is your other things. You're not timing your Balrog, you're timing other things around your Balrog. So you're timing your slime, your bullet train, your thunderbolt cannon. You're not timing Balrog himself.
Otherwise known as D-Fono, is the Epic Fest counterpart to the regular Fono, and shares a similar build. He has the same 3-part multi-hit that Fono does, but he stands at a shorter 500 range and has different abilities.
Yeah, instead of massive damage, slow.
Damage ability, D-Fono has a guaranteed chance to slow all enemies for 2 seconds.
Yep.
This is a very powerful ability given
not counting treasures, by the way.
Giving the player more defensive control for a short while after he attacks.
Wait, isn't it 2.2 seconds? I'm fairly certain specifically it is 2.2 seconds. Like 2.22. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should just keep this open. That would be a good idea. King of Doom Fono. No, it's just 2. Okay. It is just 2.
Attacks. But that isn't all, because he also has a guaranteed chance to spawn a mini surge on hit, dealing additional damage. The mini surge also retains his slow ability, which not only extends the duration, but also adds a lasting hitbox that catches enemies and slows them down. When compared to the other big 3 Ubers, D-Fono can be considered more of a support Uber. His slow
but his DPS is still good.
Other units to work well, but even without many other units, D-Fono is capable of near solo carrying many stages with basic protection. He also has the same wave and surge immunities that Fono has, but with an additional curse immunity. This means that while curse can counter Fono, D-Fono is unaffected and can continue to slow enemies even after being cursed. D-Fono's uptime is also high.
The mini surge does extend the slow. I don't know about ever so slightly, because if the third hit lands a mini surge, then oh wait, okay. Something complicated about Fonoa. Do I still have the page open? Something complicated about Fonoa or Dark Fono is that thanks to his first hit and his third hit being more than half a second apart, it effectively gives his slow 2.5 seconds. And then thanks to the mini surge, if that third hit surge goes like anywhere, then it'll also make it longer. So like the slow is effectively like closer to 3 seconds without treasures, and then with treasures it would still be like 4 seconds or something like that. And so like it is complicated to say that it's just 2 seconds long. It's closer to 3 or 4 seconds most of the time. I'll say that it is complicated, but I still think it's really good.
Enough to where if you manage to
I'm also not going to react to a con mad.
You can basically perma-slow the entire stage, turning into a near guaranteed win. Both of the Fonos had their unique benefits and roles despite being similar to each other on paper. While both were long-range LD
What
sniper
happened? What do you
units,
mean?
the regular Fono was mostly meant to be used for extremely high consistent damage output capable of melting many stages away, while D-Fono's damage output was more balanced, although still strong, and his slow allowed your other units to work better. When D-Fono originally came out, people thought he was good, but not quite at the same level
Yeah,
as the
there is a
big
prediction,
three.
sorry.
The lower damage output compared to Fono did make a pretty big impact, and the slow wasn't as easy to utilize as some overtuned numbers.
I also want to say another thing about Fono is that you're not going to want to use him against as much as you want to use Dark Phono against. Because Dark Phono's slow affects everything. So he's still usable against zombies, metals, and traitless, unlike Fonoa, who struggles against all three of those traits. And then Fonoa also has less damage against Aku and Relic. So that also gives Dark Phono an edge on them. So just something to consider with how carried massive damage is on,
But fairly
that kind
quickly,
of unit.
Dark Phono's power was accepted to where he was usually regarded as the fourth
He does
best
have
Uber in
more
the game.
health. Dark Phono
Dark
does have a
Phono's
lot of health as
reputation
well.
only got higher as
And
time went
survivability.
on, and he gained notable respect after popular BCJP YouTuber Seven or Shichi used him to replace 3 very powerful Ubers in his one lineup challenge with just a single unit. Mitama, Yukimura, and even Dasli herself were kicked out for just D-Fono to join the challenge roster, indicating that D-Fono wasn't just a jack of all trades, but near enough a master of all. While the current big three of Dasli, Fono, and Rog were still ahead of the rest of the Ubers, so was Dark Fono, and many people in the community started adding him to the group and now calling it the Big Four.
I genuinely think that the big three is fine without Dark Phono because the big three all have specialists of different things. Meanwhile, Dark Phono kind of overlaps with them, with a lot of them. So I think don't include Cosmo in that. Please don't. Like, the big three doesn't necessarily have to be the best 3 Ubers in the game, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the top 3. It's the big 3. Kind of like how in anime, it's kind of like how in anime, the big 3 is One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto. 3 shonen jumps, I think, that started around the same time after Dragon Ball. And so those are the big 3 because they are a notorious 3. Dasli, Fonoa, and Balrog fit perfectly into the notorious 3. And they are all 3 very unique. Not necessarily most unique 3. They are unique, but they're the best they're the best of their kind. Even today, like even compared to Dark Phono, Dasli has better LD damage or consistent damage. Balrog has better single target damage. Normal Phono has better sniping damage. Uh, Dark Phono is a combination of that, and I honestly I think that maybe the big 3 should drop Dasli and bring in Matama. Because hear me out. Balrog is one of the best melees. Fonoa is one of the best backlining damagers, which kind of overlaps with Dasli because they're both LD. But Mitama is probably the best support. Because Mitama, I mean, like it or not, Mitama still has a better slow than Dark Phono. So I think those 3 would be the big 3, and then Dark Phono and Dark Kazli could still be the 2 that are arguably the best Ubers in the game. Simply because they have a combination of multiple different things that can make them such a good generalist Uber. So the big 3 can be like notorious, unique, best of their kind Ubers. Meanwhile, the best Ubers have a combination of a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? Since Dazzy does have a little bit of support with the curse, Dark Phono has the support and the damage with the snipeability and stuff like that. I can't emphasize that Mitama load 4 swing 15 kb is actually relevant. I will say that, but like it or not, like I said, Mitama's slow is still probably better than Dark Phono's on like paper. because she'll still probably stay on the field longer than Dark Fono will be unless it's against curses or not. Yeah, against cursing enemies. And the knockback makes her survive much longer. She's also slow, so she won't rush into anything. And I'm just saying, the slow in of itself is better because she does still have LD. Remember that. She does still have LD, and they both kind of are weak to rushers. As I have experienced with my Dark Phono, rushing does also target him a little bit, just because he is still an LD unit. And also, bed. Cosmo deserves to be in the big three. Dark Phono, big versatility. Balrog. No, I already said Dark Phono is not the big three. I already said I don't think Dark Phono is big three. Because big versatility means best Uber. Like I said, the big three is not the best of the top three. There's a difference. So I already disagree with what you're saying. And like big attack animation and wave, that's not a broad enough thing, you know? And Balrog, it's not necessarily big damage, otherwise Lasvos would be that, you know? That was before you said that, right? Then why did you ask for thoughts on what you said after I had said that? Like
Any of these
keep
four
up.
Ubers could arguably be the best in the game, and all four were much above the next closest Uber in power. But most importantly, with Fono joining the Big Three to create the Big Four,
Felt like
this
it.
paved the path for future Ubers to try and match the ones at the top. And funnily enough, the next unit to do exactly that wasn't even an Uber at all, but rather a legend rare.
Izanagi,
Dawnbringer Izanagi was added
which
in
is
October
basically just a Balrog with range, or at least a little bit of range, and also piercing range. Just a better Balrog. Let's all be real here.
1, being the
And thanks to the Conjure, providing support.
first Uberfest exclusive unit to be a legend rare. He was also unique in other ways
No
too,
shit, there's only
being
one.
one of the first units in the game to have the Conjure ability, which summoned an invincible spirit to do a single long-ranged attack with high damage and special crowd control effects. On top of this came an extremely unique attack pattern, having a 3-part multi-hit that covered 3 different attacking areas with single target hits. Combining
Now that's unique.
damage ability against traded, this would end
Except Izanagi, Izanami, Nala, all have the same thing, just not single targeting.
up dealing hundreds of thousands of damage to anything struck by Izanagi, and gave him a ludicrous effective DPS. Immunities to Wave, Freeze, and Curse provided extra utility, and with an incredibly high HP stat, it was hard for enemies to kill Izanagi easily.
I'm
This
assuming this
Conjure
is
also
3-star because
complemented
nothing's
the field,
dying.
where summoning it would do high area damage alongside knocking back and slowing all enemies for 4.3 seconds. This allowed Izanagi's Conjure to peel for himself, as well as set up enemies into being hit with his giant damage amounts. Izanagi is a very strong unit that can be used in many ways, whether as a backliner or as bonus damage in chip stages. Although the single target and unique attack style makes him more complex and harder to utilize, if you do manage to learn everything he can do as a unit, you are rewarded with a lot of potential power. In a way,
This music's bumping.
Izanagi is kind of like a combination of all of the big four. A mid-ranger with extreme damage output like Dasli, a 3-part multi-hit.
Let's re-listen to this last 5 seconds.
A mid-ranger with extreme damage output like Dasli.
A mid-ranger with extreme damage output like Dasli. Dasli is a backliner. An extreme damage output belongs to either Balrog or Fonoa, not Dasli.
A 3-part multi-hit like Fono, big damage single target hits like Balrog, and the ability to slow and crowd control enemies like Dark Fono. Due to all of his
I guess the damage output can still be Dasli, but the mid-range. Dasli's 400 range is not something to underestimate.
full abilities and uses,
Huh?
Izanagi
Yeah.
was quickly recognized as being close to the big four in power. The biggest
No, not even close. Just it's a better Balrog, like I said. I genuinely think Izanagi is far better than Balrog.
thing that kept him from being mentioned alongside them was probably his status as a legend rare. keeping him off some people's radars not
And
just
yet
due to
so many
class,
people have
but
him.
also due to being harder to acquire.
So
He's
many
not
people have
always a
him.
very strong unit, usually at people's number 5 spot for the best Ubers or Legend Rares when the rarities were merged together. However, as more units get added to the big 3, 4, 5, or whatever the number is,
This is why I don't want to do the big 3 as just being the best Ubers. I think it should be the ones that are like notorious for being the best. So honestly, I'd be fine. I like the big 3. I think I'd be fine with it being Matama, Dasli, and Fonoa. But I would also be fine with Balrog replacing either Fonoa or Matama. I would be fine with that, but I genuinely think that Matama, Dasli, and Fonoa are the perfect 3 Ubers to be considered the big 3. Not necessarily the top 3 Ubers in the entire game, but the big 3. You know, the notorious 3 Ubers that probably changed the course of Uber design in the future.
a question starts to arise.
I'm not talking about well known, alright, bud?
Who else is strong enough to be considered to join the big 3 plus?
Anubis.
And if this term ceases to exist at all as we gain more Ubers of similar power. Who's next to join the table? Is it Lastfoss, with his extreme damage output and RNG Savage Blow allowing him to skip entire stages from a lucky roll? 7 even added him to the
Yeah, Papa Luke is the reason why I didn't say notable. This guy doesn't know how to specify what he's talking about.
one lineup challenge. There's a lot you can do with Lastfoss, but he has a big drawback of not being the most consistent unit. What
No, his biggest drawback is survivability. It's piss poor.
about Luna, a unit that completely shuts down 4 traits, breaks progression, and allows you to get Bahamut Blast extremely quick.
I think Luna is going to bring attention back to specialists. Like it's been a little while since we've had Fest Ubers that are specifically specialists. And so I do believe that Luna will maybe bring back people's attention to specialist value. Since for some reason people have apparently forgotten about it.
Quickly, alongside destroying a ton of problematic stages throughout the game. Luna might be one of or even the best Uber for progression, but her
Dark Luna is also very nice. Don't forget about Dark Luna though. But normal Luna is very good
weaker
as well.
performance in late game and end game may leave her a bit short compared to the Ubers at the top.
What do you mean? She targets Relic. That gives plenty of usage for late game.
And what about Ultra Form Cosmo?
And isn't she also immune to Surge? Is she immune to Surge? I don't know. No, she's not. Never mind. But she does have good immunities. And Wave Blocker, which can still be nice.
Arguably the best compatibility against endgame stages in the game, he may be the single best Uber for helping to finish the game up.
Dark Luna probably didn't exist. I will say that. Dark Luna is like still relatively new. So I will say Dark Luna probably wasn't in the consideration here just because of release date.
And beat the hardest stages for your first clears. But his more awkward general performance alongside having an incredibly high resource cost and being locked behind level 60 makes him unobtainable in any part of the game.
Doesn't he just straight up not reach the backline right now?
Big enough flaw to drop his spot with the others. But regardless of what
we don't even get to see his attack! Bro, you're going to include Cosmo. You're going to include Cosmo as part of the video, and you're not even going to let us see his attack. Brother.
You believe these 3 Ubers, or any other present or
we literally got to see Cosmo get juggled. That's all we saw.
Future Ubers are a reason to expand the big whatever. Maybe it's just time to stop calling them the big 3. Going back to the past, Mitama, Gao, and Jizo were at the top with their own version of the big 3, and arguably were ahead of any other Ubers.
Yeah, like I think that Cosmo's attack animation is a drawback. I think it's his his force swing is really long. It also doesn't help that his attack frequency has like 10 seconds of him not attacking. So like you may think his force swing is his main problem. It's really not that big of a problem. But it's honestly the biggest problem with him is his attack frequency. Because if he got rid of even just 5 seconds of him standing around, his damage would be much more regular, much more reliable, and much more of something to like, much better support, much more like uptime. But like I feel like his super long attack frequency, even just not even including his force swing, it gives him too big of an opening for things to rush him down. It gives him too big of an opening to get rushed down, so he needs to not be a standalone Uber, which is why I still think he's a really good support Uber. He's good for backline support. He's good for anti floating and angel support. He's really good for being a super backliner sniper, whatever. But he's not a standalone Uber.
Time, as power creep added more of them to the game, like D'Artagnan, Casly, and eventually Dasli. The old big
They act like D'Artagnan is actually worse than Mighty Lord Gao, even though I'd probably say, thanks to D'Artagnan's DPS and lower recharge time, D'Artagnan is arguably better than Mighty Lord Gao.
3 simply wasn't a big 3 anymore. Perhaps we've reached this time period now, and it's
And I know D'Artagnan was out because Mitama was. I'm pretty sure D'Artagnan came out before Mitama.
time to dissolve the same.
Pretty sure. Wait. Somebody
The
fact
big
check me
three
on that.
Ubers and the battle cats of Dasli, Fono, and Rog were just an
No.
era, and as the
Fuck. But, like, fuck, man. But D'Artagnan didn't come out far too long. I know Gao was first. Damn, I'm wrong. But still, though, like D'Artagnan still came out around the same time. He can still. Nobody's considering him big three though. Want to know why? Because Baby Gao is for some
game
reason
goes on, we'll see
good.
power creep and future metas develop. And besides, although Mitama, Gao, and Jizo aren't exactly the top Ubers right
By the way, I have Kazujizo in the early game. He doesn't actually do that much. He's only better than. He's not even better than Pizza against blacks. His generous damage is comparable to that of Cyborg, while having I think less standing range. And against angels, well, just use ramen. But like, I'll use them against angels. But generally, no. Like, Kazuchizo ain't even that good. I'll be honest with you. Even like early game. So like, I don't know, man.
now. They are still very strong ones capable of helping the player beat many stages in the game. I think that regardless of who's on top, it's better to use what Ubers you like and just find cool, cute, or
True.
funny. Because
True.
that's what
That
makes
goes
the
for
game.
ultra forms and ultra talents too. If you have somebody like Coppermine, right? If you still have somebody like Coppermine, or not still, if you have somebody for Coppermine, and you really like using Coppermine, and you then get the ultra talents. Don't even bother thinking, oh, but like, what if it's bad? If you like using the unit, it's always going to be beneficial to level them up to level 60 because they'll get the damage, they'll get the HP, and they'll get the ultra talent slash ultra form, which most of the time can be beneficial, mainly if you like using the unit. If somebody doesn't like using Anubis, they won't find the investment worth it on Anubis. But if somebody likes using Coppermine, then they'll find the investment worth it on Coppermine. That's my spiel. It's Gao, Mitama, Dart. Well, I know the ordering aside from Mitama and Dart, alright? I know the ordering aside from that.
More fun and personalized.
Yes, bet
It's
I
always
know.
fun to have favorite Ubers, and regardless of how well their performance is in the meta, we can appreciate their designs and mechanics for what they bring to the game rather than what they can beat from it. But anyways, those were the big 3 Ubers, as well as the ones that joined them or came close. If you want my ranking of all of these guys, here's all of them ranked on mechanical design, and then here's all of them ranked by guys. Here's all of them ranked on
Izanagi, Balrog, Dark Fono, Cosmo, Lunacia, Dasli, Laslos, Fono. What am I looking at here?
came close. If you want my ranking of all of these guys, here's all of them ranked on mechanical design.
Mechanical design. What the fuck does that mean? Because I already disagree with this entire thing, but whatever.
And then here's all of them ranked by visual design.
Okay, so usage versus what it looks. Okay, so mechanical design is their usage, their usability, versus how they look. Um, I mean, how? I don't see how Izanagi and Barog's designs are better than Dark Fono and Dasli. I love Dark Fono and Dasli. I love their design. I don't know. I don't entirely know how to take these rankings. Wait,
All
what
of
was
them
the first one
ranked
again?
on mechanical design.
I don't get why he's including Lunacia. Lunacia is a specialist, effectively. All the others are technically generalists, or at least that's how people will use them. So I don't think Lunacia belongs on this list because she's more of a like 50% specialist. You know what I mean? Uh, it could be subjective, but he said his ranking. Yeah, Izanagi's not number one on cosmetics. I'll go ahead and tell you that much. Izanagi's also not number one on mechanical. Because, yeah, the damage is big, but I still like the single attack targeting, along with the possibility of missing quite a bit, because it's Nala treatment with the multi hit. It's a little interesting. Also, welcome Fenrix. Also, the prediction. I never did pay out the prediction, did I? Uh, how do I guess I can do slash prediction. So I don't have it open. Choose outcome. All right. It by the way, the stream. Yeah, you guys win.
design, and then
I
it is
just
all
I
of
just
them ranked
disagree
on
with it, but
visual
whatever.
design. And if there's just one thing to take away from all of this, it's
Yeah, the
that
big quote unquote three.
Fono is not the best duper in the game, guys.
True.
This furry bait white Grinch lookalike is just not it.
True.
Have a good day,
Facts.
and I'll see you
This
all in the next
Kamehameha
one.
bitch ain't number one. Uh, well, I took 2 hours to watch a 40-minute video. This is fucking nuts. Like, how in the hell did I manage to more than double the time that the video is? Don't say that is Kamehameha, that is slander. Sorry. It has a big charge up and it has a big beam. More of a final flash. Uh, well, I mean, it's a two. I cannot believe that took me 2 hours to get through. I, dude, I'm a professional pauser. What the hell? Check out Final Flash. Okay, I guess before I go, appreciate it. Yeah, true. Final Flash images. You know what? Fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough. Sounds about right. If you did enjoy, please do come back for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.